A shocking confession from a production staffer sparked outrage among the army. Is Jin just being made a puppet for a scenario that has been designed full of lies? The so-called secret location is now allegedly just a cheap studio, and HYB's involvement in the drama is even more undeniable. When news of the Screwballs set with BTS's Jin first surfaced, the fandom world was in an uproar. All eyes were on the images that spread quickly on social media. Among the bright lights and the majestic background stands the figure of Jin, who is so graceful in casual clothes, as if to illustrate that he is returning to the entertainment world with enthusiasm and readiness. But is it really a reality? One question began to fuel fans' curiosity. Was it really an authentic set, or just a stage full of gimmicks? When an anonymous account user at X claims to be part of the Screwballs production team, things change. His upload was electrifying, not because of the location information, but because of the bold claim he wrote without hesitation. The location is not real. It's not a real shooting range. It was just an old studio that we briefly converted for a promotional photo shoot. Jin doesn't even know HYB's full plan. The claim immediately sparked a storm. ARMY, who had believed that Jin was undergoing real filming, felt lied to. Many of them claimed to have felt the awkwardness from the start. Too few behind-the-scenes videos, too many static camera angles, and no real interaction between the genie and the main crew of Screwballs. If it's true that the place is just a fake setting, why should it be hidden? Who is actually trying to control this narrative? Conjectures began to circulate that HYB might have had a large hand in this. Several soldiers revealed that they noticed a suspicious pattern since Jin began to appear in public again after a long period of military service. When photos of Screwballs were leaked, there was not a single official confirmation from the agency. There was only ambiguous news that further clouded the atmosphere. "They're playing with our emotions," one fan wrote angrily. HYB knows very well that Jin's return is a very emotional moment for us. But if this is just an act within an act, then who is really being honest? One very disturbing detail is the appearance of a filming property that can be traced to an old property that was used in another variety show owned by a different TV station. The location, which is claimed to be in the interior of South Korea, is in fact recorded in a small studio rental database in Seoul. It is this detail that reinforces the claim that the venue is not a real filming location, but only an imitation solely for the purposes of promotional visuals. Even more heartbreaking, there are rumors that Jin himself may not know that what he is doing is not a real shoot, but only a limited shooting with a narrative plot that has been arranged for marketing purposes. If this is true, then will Jin also be a victim in this drama? "Why are they playing with Jin like this?" shouted one of the army in the live broadcast of the online community. "He has suffered enough, lost time with us during his military service. Now, once it comes back, it's a cheap marketing tool." Another fact that sparked doubts came from the absence of other actors in the clips and promotional footage that circulated. There is no direct interaction between Jin and the other main characters. All the pieces look like they were taken separately. Even the backgrounds are too generic, as if they were deliberately made so that they are not too striking. Did I ask this a sneaky strategy to build a viral sensation? Or is this just a fatal internal communication failure? HYB until now has not given a firm statement that is able to answer all the questions that resonate in the hearts of millions of ARMY. Instead of clarifying, they released a general statement that tended to be defensive, stating that all of Jin's post-enlistment activities were part of a mutually agreed-upon project. But with whom? Does Jin agree with all the narrative directions that have been arranged for him? Or is it a part of the game that he never understood from the beginning? More surprisingly, a former video editor who claimed to have been contracted by HYB for an internal promotion project uploaded a private message addressed to the production team. The message reads, "Make sure the angle doesn't show the boundaries of the studio. Make it seem like the location is outside the city, even though we only use Lot A and Lot B." The message did not mention Jin's name directly, but the shooting time and properties used are identical to those seen in the Screwballs teaser. And suddenly, it all made sense. ARMY felt hit twice. First, because of the sense of loss of Jin for almost 2 years of military service. Secondly, because the return of the genie is not in the form of honesty, but the alleged visual manipulation of slicing feelings. How could they be so mean? A fan from the Philippines. We just want to see Jin come back with sincere works. But now we're even wondering, is it all fake? The question resonated, even contagious to international fandom. In Brazil, in Thailand, in Canada, everyone began to doubt the veracity of the narrative that they had been swallowing raw. In fact, some large fan bases began calling for a boycott of the Screwballs project, demanding immediate clarification from Genie or an official representative. But in the midst of this storm, Jin remained silent. Or forced to be silent. Some speculated that Jin had signed a contract that limited his public statements about the project. If true, then the pressure he faces is not just from the public, but from within his own agency. Then, if Jin is not given the freedom of speech, what does it mean to be an artist in this industry? Does HYB really dare to play around with fan loyalty as big as ARMY? Do they think it will all be forgotten? What was most heartbreaking was the appearance of a photo of Jin sitting alone in the studio backstage, away from the crew, with a blank facial expression that the camera could not lie to. Many interpret the expression not as fatigue, but as a resigned form of a person who knows that he is being used as a tool. Has Jin's love of the stage been sacrificed for the sake of a rotten image strategy? Will HYB be willing to explain everything, or will she let this lie grow and hurt the hearts of her most loyal fans? One thing is certain: the truth cannot be held forever. And if all this proves to be true, then what will burn is not only that fake location, but also the trust that has been the foundation between Jin and the ARMY. They want answers. They want honesty, and they won't stop until Jin can talk unscripted. But maybe the question isn't just, does Jin know? But rather, what are they really hiding from him? Some fans who previously worked in the entertainment industry are beginning to unravel the manipulative patterns that often occur behind the scenes. One of the former assistant producers of a famous variety show uploaded a long thread about how agencies sometimes create the illusion of reality in order to raise public interest. In that thread, he wrote that it's entirely possible that Screwballs are just narrative protective gear, and the genie is nothing more than a face placed on HYB's strategy chessboard. But what reason did they have to fake the location? Wouldn't it be easier if they did indeed create a real project? This is a question that deepens the mystery. Because if the answer is simple, why was HYB silent until now? Why do they distract the media with unimportant posts, such as Jin's favorite food during filming or his playlist? Some ARMY suspected strongly that Screwballs was not an official project from the start. That all we've seen so far is promotion for another bigger project, or even just to dampen the public's disappointment over Jin's absence from his solo album after leaving the ARMY. Is it true that HYB deliberately created the scenario so that fans feel Jin is still there, when in reality, he is undergoing internal pressure that he cannot fight? And when one by one the internal staff began to divulge small facts such as the very minimal number of crew during filming, the shooting time that was too short to be called episode production, to the cameras that only one type of fixed frame model was used, it all began to look like a big charade laid out for one purpose: to maintain illusion, the illusion that the genie is fine. The illusion that the genie is back with a project full of love. The illusion that HYB fully supports his creativity. But what if all this is just for the sake of avoiding the demands of a public hungry for work? Why don't we see Jin smiling like before? Asked one of the fanbase from Japan who posted a compilation of Jin's expressions since 2019 until now. The gaze is different, and his smiles seem to always be hidden behind the script. There was something he could stand, something he couldn't say. Another theory emerged, more terrible than just a false location. Some have suggested that HYB forced the project onto Jin shortly after he completed his military service, without giving him any emotional respite. If this is true, then Jin's silence is not just fatigue, but a form of passive resistance. A silent way to survive among pressures, expectations, and manipulation. Have we been watching the Jin all this time, or is it just a version of the Jin they formed? And if it's true that Jin doesn't know that the filming location he stepped on is not a real place, Isn't that a form of abuse against the integrity of an artist? Was HYB so afraid of Jin being herself that they had to wrap her in a fake world? Not a few fans admitted to feeling guilty. Guilty of having participated in spreading content that. And as the world continued to wonder, the genie remained silent. But in his silence, the world seemed to hear screams louder than words. It's not just about the set that turns out to be just an old studio on the outskirts of the city transformed with green curtains and makeshift digital effects. Nor is it about the fact that the property used in the filming is known to have been used repeatedly for the content of other HYB artists. What made the army really collapse was the possibility that Jin himself was not informed. The question now is not only, why did they hide the real set? Rather, how far will they form a false reality around the Jin just for the sake of securing the image of HYB? Several pieces of video that have now been dissected show horrific moments that were not previously considered important. Like the moment when Jin laughed, but his gaze drifted. Like the moment when Jin reads the script, then glances at the camera as if he wants to say something but can't. And the moment when he finished shooting and looked reluctantly stood up, as if his body was too heavy to return to the waiting room. If it's just a comedy project, why does it feel like a morning drama? Wrote a fan. The comment went viral immediately. Now, there is one big question that is beginning to dominate the conversation of fans around the world. Is the genie locked up in a setting created not for her, but for them? Suspicion grew when one anonymous former lighting crew sent a message to a big fan blog, saying that the lights used in the Screwballs were not even enough for a real broadcast production. It's not a variety show. It was kind of a promo. But the promotion is not clear for what, he wrote. Meanwhile, some of the old crew members who had worked with Jin before enlistment began to speak indirectly through their personal accounts, with meaningful sentences such as, "He doesn't deserve to be returned to this kind of world," or "We thought he would be given freedom, not a false shadow." A painful question arises. Is this a subtle form of punishment from HYB for Jin rejecting some of their projects before enlistment? Because according to rumors that have not been officially denied, Jin had rejected HYB's offer to lead a variety show subunit with a new artist from the agency. He wanted to take a break and write his own songs. But somehow, the mysterious Screwballs project just popped up and suddenly had to be lived through. Did I ask this a form of back pressure? And if it's true that HYB controls everything, then what's left of the old genie? The cries of many fans on live TikTok and Instagram are no longer hysterical cries of longing, but of anger. Angry because they feel they have been used all this time. Angry that their love for Jin is used as a tool to create a false reality. And angry at not being able to help the genie from behind the impenetrable screen. Even more devastating is when someone uploads a clip from BTS's old variety show Run, where the genie is so lively, witty, and free to laugh that he falls to the floor because of RM's joke. Then, the clip is juxtaposed with snippets of genies and Screwballs, sitting still, small laughs that don't even echo, and empty eyes. The eye does not belong to the one who plays. It belongs to the one who is holding back, wrote a senior fan from Korea. As the speculation grew, HYB released a statement that added fuel to the fire. "We value the creativity of artists and encourage the exploration of various projects to improve connections with fans." But not a single mention of the alleged false location. There is no sentence about Jin's involvement in the concept. There is no clarification, precisely from there everything changes. Many armies are beginning to see patterns. A pattern in which their artist, whom they love wholeheartedly, is positioned as a pawn in the image game. And Jin, who has always been known as the most honest and outspoken member in front of the camera, now looks like an actor who is only given dialogue. Now, the international media is starting to catch on. Several Japanese, Philippine, and Brazilian outlets asked HYB's communications division directly about the true location of the Screwballs. There's no definitive answer. And even more horrifying, the Screwballs Instagram account suddenly deleted some location posts. Why? Was it because they knew the army was getting too close to the truth? And if all this is just a hoax, then what project is HYB actually building? Are they setting up something bigger and making Screwballs just a distraction? Or Are they just trying to hide the fact that Jin isn't ready to come back? One comment hit millions of fans' hearts. If the location alone is fake, what about the smile? And from there, everything